Kia ora and welcome to the 7th episode of Point of View. I'm your host, Tom Augustine. We've got a really, really great show coming up today. We're going to be talking about everything coming out on the big screen in April and also on streaming. But most especially, we're talking to Paolo Rotondo, the artistic director of the incredible Italian Film Festival, which is rolling out in Auckland before heading out across New Zealand throughout the year. The program just dropped. It is really, really wonderful. So we're going to be digging into that. So stay tuned. Paolo Rotondo is a amazing filmmaker, actor. He is also the artistic director of the Italian Film Festival, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. Now, there are a lot of cultural film festivals in this country, but bar none, the Italian Film Festival has always been my favourite. The programming is exquisite. Always the sense of festivity around it is so great. And just look at this amazing program that's just come out. It's really, really beautiful. So thank you for being here with us today, Paolo.
Grazie and buongiorno to everyone.
Buongiorno.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. It's so nice to be here. And thanks for the kind words about the festival.
Oh, look, it's very easy when it's this good. I mean, one of my favorite film memories is watching Il Gattopardo, the leopard, at the Italian Film Festival. We hadn't met at that point. You came up and shook my hand. We had a quick chat, and then you moved on because you had a bunch of people to talk to. But then going in and watching that film, which I had never seen on the big screen, was incredible. And it's
I remember that. That was at the Capitol, wasn't it?
It was,
yeah.
And it's just been hitting highs since then. So this program is special because it's the 10-year anniversary. So I assume that you were going into it with a sense of kind of looking back, ceremony. What was the kind of idea behind this year's program?
Well, we've sort of been honing our relationship with our audiences over the time. And obviously in New Zealand, the Italian community is tiny, right? So I feel this great responsibility of sort of sharing Italian cinema with non-Italians. But at the same time, because I'm Italian and I've got my Italian community, I've got to represent Italy in an authentic way. Yeah. And so there's a kind of slightly, we've sort of been trying to build audiences and challenging them a little bit over the years. I don't know if you've noticed, but, last year we did a really challenging film for an opening night film. And each time we try to sort of up the stakes so that we don't, film festival audiences are sophisticated. They don't want to just see what they could normally see in commercial cinema. So they want something a little bit more interesting, and that involves documentaries and classics as well. Yeah. And I've been able to put a few of my faves in a bit this year, like the classic film this year that we've got, which is one of the centerpieces, is Il Postino by Massimo Troisi. And that was a film that won an Oscar in the 90s. And he got a posthumous Academy Award as well, the writer-co-director, because it's directed by Massimo Troisi and Michael Radford, who's a British director.
Right.
And so that's it's also probably one of the best loved Italian films of the last sort of 40 years. Sure. And it's from my part of Italy. So I've been looking for the opportunity, and it was like, the anniversary of the film's coming out. And so I was like, yes, great. Now's the time I can show off something that's close to my heart. And it's one of those films that I think for audiences, it's got the sentimentality and the beauty and the philosophy that Anglo-Saxon audiences come to associate with Italian films. Right. It's really beautiful, poetic, really funny, but it's got a kind of sweetness and romanticism that is, Latin. It's Italian, it's fantastic. Mediterranean, so it really transports you. You don't get that kind of feeling. That you don't get the warm buzz and that kind of humour and philosophizing in American or English-speaking films in the same way. Totally. So that was a true pleasure.
Well, it's interesting that you mention that, because I feel like another filmmaker who's kind of got a little bit of a highlight in here, Sorrentino, kind of has that same sort of passion in his filmmaking. And we've got Parthenope this year, and we've got Youth as well.
That's right.
So that's a really great filmmaker to be spotlighting as well. And then you've also got Anthony Minghella as well. Yeah,
and that was a choice that I've been looking forward to doing. I mean, I haven't seen another festival do it, but I'm an Italian who lives overseas, and I'm a filmmaker, but I think of myself as Italian. And so Anthony Minghella is he's Italian heritage. Both his parents were immigrants to the Isle of Wight in England, and they had a gelato shop.
Right.
So his films, for me, have an incredible Italian sensibility, but he's a filmmaker working in British films.
Yeah. Right.
But both The English Patient and The Talented Mr. Ripley are centered in Italy. And so you have this vision of an Italian diaspora kind of look at Italy. And so I think it's really part of and I obviously I connect to that because that's my experience. I look at Italy from the outside because I don't live there all the time. And I think that was what Minghella was doing. And so his perspective is really, really interesting. And I obviously personally are really connected to that longing and that feeling and that sort of maybe mythologizing of Italy, the way, from an outside perspective.
Absolutely. And I mean, there is that sense of, the mythic in both Talented Mr. Ripley and The English Patient. I mean, the way he lenses Italy is just, it's bar none. It's exquisite. And so it's a really great showcase of what you're talking about, that kind of diasporic approach, coming back, having a look at it from the outside. You get that sense in the storytelling as well. Magic. What else in the program is exciting you this year?
We've got a film by a beautiful... well, actually, I'll talk about the opening night film.
Yes.
The opening night film is called Gloria. And Gloria is the classic crowd-pleasing film. It is a sort of film that will leave you laughing and smiling for 15, 20 minutes afterwards. And it's basically about, it's an anachronistic musical film. So it's set in the 19th century in a woman's orphanage around the Veneto region. And they get together and they make a choir and they make music and they compose. And of course, they are rebellious, these young orphans. And it's really feminine driven. And first-time film director.
Wow.
She is incredible. Her name is Margherita Vicario. And but they use music of the time, so you'll hear Vivaldi in it, but then you'll also hear contemporary music. So it's got that anachronistic sort of playful. It's never trying to take itself too serious or be highbrow, and it's just joyous as a film. And it was like the perfect opening. And actually, it showed in the New Zealand International Film Festival.
Oh, okay.
But because, the New Zealand International Film is so big, it didn't get quite the spotlight.
Yeah, right.
And I just couldn't go past it. I think this is the perfect opening night film. So I think we'll have a whole entire new audience of people who may not have seen it.
Yeah, fantastic. I think I saw it in the festival but couldn't fit it in, so this is a great opportunity to really spotlight it. I'm also interested in this other film on the same page, Ciao Bambino, which was completely not on my radar. Had a look at some of the imagery from it, which is exquisite. And so I'm very, very interested in it.
You're the film buff. I mean, you'll see the sort of French New Wave look in there, but shot in beautiful black and white. It's not a frame in it that is just not so elegant, but not in a cinema verite kind of feel, because it's shot on the periphery of Napoli, in that crime-ridden sort of poorer. But he brings the beauty of that world out with a cinematography in such a way, and it's that. A little bit like the Rialto film that's going to show called Tu Chiara, that's on the Rialto channel now. It's that Italian perspective on the crime mafia genre,
right?
Which couldn't be more different from the romanticizing American version.
Yeah, right.
And so it has an authenticity and a poeticism and a beauty and you feel real families and real people in a world where this crime exists. And it feels like an ancient Greek myth nearly in terms of and if you think about where Napoli is, it was founded by the Greeks. It's just a really timeless film, and it is so beautiful. And when my wife saw it, she's a Kiwi Māori, the managing director of the film festival, she was like, this is one of the best mafia films I have ever seen.
Wow.
And I think it was because of that, the sort of gentle sensibility. So it's not one of those films. I don't think you see the crime on screen at all.
Oh, wow.
It's more like that's the world. And so it's a little bit more powerful than seeing the gunshots and the violence. It's actually this is a world where that happens and you just know it. And it's very moving and very beautiful. And I just cannot help use the word cool.
Yeah, right.
Because, I mean, it's obviously got these beautiful young people in it who are
right.
just so gorgeous and sexy. But the style of cinematography and the attitude is just...
Yeah,
they're just so cool.
Fantastic. I mean, that is such a good point what you're saying about crime films from within Italy having a different feel. I mean, thinking about something like, the one that when I was looking at this, I thought of Rocco and his brothers, the Visconti. I mean, I don't know if there's actually much beyond the fact that it's like beautiful people in black and white and it's crime, but a bunch of others. There's a lot that looks really, really fascinating about that film. Another one that I'm really interested in is Parthenope, which I mentioned briefly before. Yep. Now, this one was at Cannes, and I was looking out for it throughout the year, and then I was like, you know what? I think Paolo's going to have it at the festival. It looks really beautiful again. Now, this one's based on a Greek myth.
So he's also Neapolitan, so like myself. So the city of Napoli is based. There's a siren called Parthenope, and she was on the rock, and she tried to, beckon the sailors to come. And of course, a ship, I think with Odysseus, hit the rocks. Right. And on this rock, which is in the middle of the Bay of Naples, in the city now, it's got a castle on it. It's a rock that's where she was supposed to be beckoning them from. Right. And so we in Naples call ourselves Parthenope, or we are from Parthenope, the rock of where she is from. Wow. So that's like about 3,000 years ago, pre-Roman. Yeah. And we have got, we're the Neapolitans. I mean, this is the thing that from the outside you notice. We are so still have this ancient Greek feel about us in the south. We're Mediterranean. We're not Europeans. And Paolo Sorrentino wanted to celebrate that. And so it's very, Sorrentino uses, he's the heir of Fellini. His visual style 100%. Is full of fantasy and full of inventiveness and visual creativity and whimsy all the time. So he doesn't tell very linear stories. His stories aren't like 3-act structures with a beginning, middle, and an end. Yeah, totally. They're more like philosophical approaches or treatises on something. And so he uses this idea to celebrate his city, of the myth of Parthenope. And it is so sensual and beautiful, but in an elegant, stylish way, like it's not silly, it's not, totally. It's very, very adult, but there's not a frame in it which doesn't make you feel the sensuality of the hot Italian summer and of the feel and the passions. Yeah. Like in those hot climates, hot Latin Mediterranean climates, people are more passionate. They're just like they're intense, and you really feel that. And there's this woman she's like a siren, and it sort of tells a story of her through a character of her over time. And at the same time, that becomes a metaphor for the city of Napoli, this place which is so beautiful and so tragic and so full of mysteries and intrigue. And, it's a place that kind of lives, the mythical in Naples is real, because when you've got 3 million people believing something, they manifest that stuff. And Sorrentino sort of loves to celebrate those things. And if you live outside of that world, films like that really drag you into that. I don't think there's another way of doing it without spending 6 months or a year living in Napoli.
Well, as if I didn't want to see it enough, now I want to see it even more. I mean, that sounds really, really great. Into April, what we've got coming up on the big screen out there in the world, I'm going to start with another filmmaker who is, I guess it's kind of fortunate that his film is coming out around the same time as this film festival. Luca Guadagnino, his new film Queer, which caused a big stir last year. It's got Daniel Craig. It's an adaptation of who's the
William
author?
Burroughs.
William Burroughs, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also the second film that came out from Guadagnino last year, along with Challenges. So it's he's a very, very busy man. But this one looks really, really sensual and interesting. It's the story of a writer who is kind of falling into a bit of a drunken stupor or a drugged up stupor, while also falling in love with a young, hot young thing. And it just looks like a very, very beautiful, sensuous kind of film. Are you a Guadagnino fan?
I fell in love with Guadagnino when one of his first films that did really well was called I Am Love.
Yeah.
And we showed it in our film festival a few years ago as well. Guadagnino, he's one of the great Italian filmmakers of the last 20 years, for sure. And I love his voice is uncompromising. He really goes for what he likes.
Totally.
And once again, he's very sensual as well. And it's nice in the Challenges, for example, that came out last year. It was a heterosexual relationship, and in this one, you've got like a Daniel Craig playing a William Burroughs inspired character.
Yeah, right.
But he makes you feel the lust and excitement of those characters and of that sort of erotic eye, that vision. Really, he's such an aesthete.
Yes.
That he really goes for it. Through the lens, he makes you desire the object of desire of the character.
Totally. And he just the way he uses textures, he conjures such elegant moods. I mean, I think about A Bigger Splash, which is my first one, Nino, which I really, really enjoyed, or Call Me By Your Name, the way that villa feels like somewhere that you just desperately want to go to, and just looking at even the trailer for this, and seeing some of the imagery, it just looks so evocative and so rich, like overwhelmingly rich.
Visually it looks incredible, and although it's about sort of what would you call it? Transgressive subjects, maybe. I don't know if it is in 2025.
No, I don't
really
so.
think it's that big a deal. Love stories between men and women. I mean, it's a love story that counts, and it's the journey of the characters.
Yeah.
But you know what? I a few years ago I was at a film festival and I met the writer of the book Call Me By Your Name, and I asked him, how was it to have somebody interpret your book? And he said he got one script and he gave him one note. And then the next one he saw, he went, that's the film.
Wow.
Can you imagine allowing someone... So Guadagnino and his collaborator must be incredible adapters of books to do that. So to adapt William Burroughs in Queer is such a big responsibility because he's so well loved.
Yeah, totally. It must be quite formidable to try and tackle that. And we were just discussing this off air. We were talking about his relationship to Antonioni. For our film Capital Cinema Film Club this month, we are showing an Antonioni, it kind of tying into the Italian Film Festival. We're showing his film The Passenger, with Jack Nicholson and Maria Schneider. Have you seen this film?
Which, The Passenger?
The Passenger.
Yes, I have. Not for a long time, but it's unforgettable. Jack Nicholson, and how can you forget the closing scene of that film? It's like one of the longest takes. At the time, it might have been the longest single uncut take in history of cinema.
Wow.
Because it was on 35mm.
Yeah.
So I think they had to do extra big spools of film
in
order for it to be, because it goes on for some inordinate and it is so stylish. Oh my God, how stylish and cool is it?
It's just the absolute pinnacle of that. And the fact that Nicholson used his star power to be so trusting with a filmmaker who is so resolutely his own thing, unapologetic about it, as you say, like, I don't know that you would see a film by a major filmmaker like that which would have some kind of meditative unbroken take for that long right at the end. Nowadays it's
Can you imagine the producers, I'm just going to do this 4-minute long take, guys, and no cuts and no other coverage.
No coverage. That's it. We're also looking at Miguel Gomez's new film Grand Tour, which is coming out on the same day as Queer. We've got two really singular works coming out on the same day. Now, Grand Tour, Miguel Gomez is a really, really interesting filmmaker. He made a trilogy of Arabian Nights movies a few years ago. I believe this is his first film since then, maybe not. But it's a kind of... it's a kind of journey through the early 20th century. It's about a woman chasing her husband across big grand expanses after he's kind of fled their marriage, and there's a whole lot of other stuff going on. But one of the big things is that it's very evocative of like past, even silent film, and it's all the artifice of it all is really on the surface. Like you can see a lot of it is like made on sound stages and stuff, and so it's recalling older forms of cinema, but it makes something very intoxicating and hypnotic and fascinating as well.
It looks like a real piece of art, eh?
The
way that every little location that she goes to, the wife looking for her husband, and the different Asian locations, the style of filmmaking changes, and the era of the film changes, and I think they probably use different technology to capture the film. It's really creative and
very, very creative, and very like, it won't be for everyone, but it has this kind of mosaic approach that's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Another film that's coming out on the 17th. Now this one is a little bit more controversial, I suppose. It's warfare. It's Alex Garland has kind of collaborated on this one, which is with an Iraq War veteran, talking about his experiences in the Iraq War. He's drawn in a whole lot of kind of emerging young male stars, you know, like the guy from May December, what was his name? I forget. But there's a whole bunch of other young male stars in this film, which is, I think, about a specific attack that happened while posted in the Iraq War. Have you seen much about this film?
Yeah, I find it really difficult. I'm sure, and the filmmaking looks incredible, and the acting looks incredible. I'm even sure the storytelling is authentic, but I find that it's a really questionable idea that you release a film about this kind of war when you've got the United States supporting a genocide, and plus what they did in Iraq and Afghanistan, you know, like celebrating their soldiers. It's kind of weird.
Yes, I agree.
It's kind of weird right now. There's not too soon, maybe. For it.
I saw a thing online about how, you know, American war films, they'll go to war and then they're one of the few people who will go to war and cause a whole lot of chaos and pain, and then make a film about their own experience of it and how hard it was for them.
That's right. Yeah.
And this feels like a really prime example of that. I mean, obviously we haven't seen the film, but Garland as a filmmaker, I mean, I think about Civil War, which came out a little while ago, and which also kind of felt like it hedged its bets a lot on actually making any kind of genuine statement outside of like the realm of
I agree.
Of like hedging its bets. You
can't be objective.
No.
In filmmaking, because you need a perspective. You need to, like, the way you frame a shot or the way the dialogue is written has a point of view.
Yeah.
And so to pretend that you're gonna, look, and we're divided. The United States is a divided place. It's kind of like, it's a cop out, really. You've got to go for it. But he's still a very talented technical filmmaker.
Oh yes,
and his Civil War is pretty gripping.
I mean, experientially, it's like you're shredding the seat because you're so nervous. You know,
I imagine this will be like that. Eh?
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it will be an experiential thing. But
who's it distributed? Do you know?
A24, which is interesting.
Amazing distributor too. Yeah. Yeah, but I wonder if, you go, hey guys, should
read
you
the room.
Read the room.
The next one we've got here, also quite interesting. Small things like these. Now, this one's been floating around for a while and at festivals and stuff. We're finally getting our chance to see it. Cillian Murphy's first film since Oppenheimer. It is an adaptation of Claire Keegan's really beautiful short story about Irish a young woman who fell pregnant, who was sent to convents and treated very, very poorly. And it's the short story. I don't know if you've read it.
I did. I read it.
Powerful.
It was one of those little novellas that came out that my mother read and then gave to my wife, and then she said, "You have to read it," and I gave it to my sister. That kind, because it's such a beautiful, beautiful book, and it's incredibly moving. But it's moving because of its restraint. It's about something really big and really incredibly dark, but the treatment of it is incredibly delicate.
Yes, it's all about what you don't see as much as what you do.
Yeah,
which I'm hoping we'll see in the film as well. I think it's really beautiful, actually, that Cillian Murphy has obviously ascended into a new level of stardom, but he's always been very interested in Irish stories and keeping some tie to that.
I'd say he's perfect casting, to be honest,
absolutely.
because he is really good at doing the nuanced, internal, conflicted character, but with a very deep, connected truth to that.
Truly.
And this book demanded an incredible lead actor.
Yeah.
And I think he delivers by the looks of it.
Who can say a lot with a little. Yes, I believe actually at the Irish Film Awards he won Best Actor, which maybe is a bit of a gimme, but I mean it must be like he is a kind of a hero for these kinds of films. I mean, I think of The Wind That Shakes the Barley or other films that he's been in from that period, which are so key to our understanding of modern Irish cinema.
It's great that the Irish are making a film like that about their country, because it's the sort of thing, I believe that cinema's a really great place to discuss and purge ideas as well. And, obviously it would be so... I guess it would be quite upsetting for a lot of Irish people to see this, but it's totally necessary.
So necessary, absolutely, yes. Also coming up is Death of a Unicorn, which looks quite interesting as well. It's got a really, really strong cast. There's Jenna Ortega, who's kind of a really emerging star. We've got Paul Rudd. We've even got like Richard E. Grant in there. It's about a father and daughter who are on a road trip and hit a unicorn, and then have to decide what to do with the body, which is quite an interesting setup.
That's genius.
And I think it turns into something more horror-y as it goes on.
Yeah, but I think it's also really satirical. It looks like even the trailer had me laughing out loud. I mean, Richard E. Grant will always have me laughing out loud, but I think it's also, I was going, what is this about? And it feels to me like it's very satirical about maybe the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes.
And about that kind of world.
I think it's very wealth skewering as well. I believe they come into contact with a very wealthy family who have a very different idea of what to do with the unicorn after it's been discovered. So that's quite interesting, and should be, as you say, hopefully it's got a bit of a satirical bite to it.
I imagine so. Do you remember something like Triangle of Sadness?
Yeah.
I got the feeling of an American version of something like that, you know, in that tone, or even a little bit White Lotus-y feeling where, it's it's heightened, obviously heightened. It's a unicorn.
Yeah, totally. Slightly off kilter, but hopefully of that same kind of ilk. We've also got the Penguin Lessons coming out on the 17th. Now, this one is probably more in the heartwarming genre, but it's got some really great pedigree behind it. The director of Philomena, which is a really beautiful film. Steve Coogan is starring in it.
Jonathan Pryce in it.
Jonathan Pryce,
amazing!
Fantastic. So it's a great lineup.
If you'd told me the byline of this, I would have gone, cheesy. But then you see the trailer and you see Steve Coogan and the treatment of it, and you think, wow, they've maybe elevated or taken it to somewhere way more interesting. I think also the fact that it's set in Argentina with expat English people there in the early 80s. There's, they bring other dynamics to it, which make this... it looks like it's side-splittingly funny, by the way.
Yeah, fantastic.
It looks really funny.
Steve Coogan plays an English teacher, and he rescues a penguin and has to keep looking after the penguin in 1980s Argentina. It's just an interesting setting for something like this.
Genius setting, eh?
Yeah, fantastic. Now, to talk about films that we've had a chance to have a look at the trailers for. So the first one is Sinners. Now, this one's quite interesting because it's the first film from Ryan Coogler that's not franchise-based since, I think, Fruitvale Station. I mean, he did Creed and the Black Panther movies, and they have kind of taken over this young director's life for a long time, and this seems like his first standalone for quite a while. I really do rate Ryan Coogler. I think Fruitvale Station's incredible. I think Creed is absolutely beautiful. The first Black Panther is one of the few Marvel films that really feels like it stands out by itself, you know. But I am really happy to see him back in the realm of telling a story that seems to be kind of unique and original. It's a story of two black brothers, and I believe it's like Depression era American
Jim
South.
Crow,
Southern Gothic.
Louisiana, and Southern
something like
Gothic.
that.
That's the way. Yeah,
And it's a vampire movie, which is interesting as well. I don't think he's ever handled a horror before. What did you think of the trailer when you saw it?
Oh, you can really tell that his experience on the big franchise films has paid off in his formal filmmaking.
Yes, 100%.
It's really styly.
Really
It's,
muscular, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got all the formality of action film, but then it's also got an art house sensibility, and the setting and the art direction looks incredible.
Yeah.
They filmed it all in Louisiana on purpose as well, and
right.
I also love, like all his films, they do have that sort of socio-political undercurrent.
Yeah, but
And
it's very, it's not too
except this time
heavy-handed.
the vampires are white racists, obviously.
Yeah, very clearly.
And so, yeah, brilliant. That's a perfect metaphor, you know. And the lead actor, what's his name?
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan plays twins, and he plays both of them, and he looks like he really holds the screen.
I mean, he's just a wonderful presence. I've always found him to be a really wonderful presence on screen, and he's joined by a cast of just like every name is like, yes, I really can't wait to see that, including Delroy Lindo, incredible actor, Haley Steinfeld, and I forget her name, Ingenue, Alice Taylor from Nickel Boys, and a whole bunch of other great actors. So it's a really great lineup.
The whole New Orleans packed with the devil musical
Yes.
aspect of it is also really interesting, because I haven't seen that treated since maybe something like Angel Heart in a really strong way. It's a long time ago. Yeah, that's a great story world to tap into.
Totally. It's so rich. The other trailer that we had to talk about was Emmanuel, which is I guess it's a remake of the classic sort of series of erotica films. This one is a little bit different. It comes from Audrey Dewan, who made a bit of a splash with her debut feature Happening a while back, which was a very, very sober, difficult but beautiful abortion drama. So this one looks like it's a bit of a different take on that kind of property. It's an interesting one. What did you make of the trailer when you had a look at it?
Aesthetically, the erotic aspect of it was really appealing. Like, it looks really beautiful.
Yes.
And what I was surprised at is that it's an English-speaking film in a French genre. So the genre of erotic mainstream films doesn't really exist outside of Italy and Spain and France.
Yeah.
And so I was really surprised, and I don't mind it myself at all, that genre, because it's not bad taste when you have the cultural context around it.
Absolutely not.
But when you export it to a different culture, I mean, English world is in a sort of post-Victorian, a lot more conservative,
Yes.
a lot more Christian. So I don't know how that's going to work. I really want to see it. The fact that it's English has a tension with that.
Well, I think there has been some disappointment actually from critical receptions that I've read, that it does play it a little safe, maybe, in terms of the way that it handles its eroticism, the way it holds back, and it's very kind of reserved in that sense. I mean, I guess when you're thinking about the original Emmanuel and how go for broke it is in a certain sense, it does tie into what you're talking about, where there is maybe a little bit more tentativeness around really going there with these erotic impulses, which are part of human life and so should be on the screen. And so it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it.
It was a really big film in France by the looks of its budget and the stars that are involved. I mean, Noémie Merlant is one of the rising stars. You know, I remember her from
Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and she's the secretary in Tar to Kate Blanchett.
She is, yeah.
And she's obviously, you know, working in French and English-speaking cinema and is in total command of it. And I think, it looks interesting. And oh my gosh, Will Sharp.
Yeah.
I love that actor. And
Fantastic.
I remember seeing him in Flowers, which he wrote, directed, and acted in. Do you remember? It's a TV series called Flowers.
No,
the thing that made him, he's a British-Japanese actor, and he has a huge range from comedy to drama, and he's a really talented director, writer himself. And I'm really interested in seeing his performance because he's an interesting person to watch.
I think the assembly of talent makes it an undeniable, like, it's one that needs to be seen. It's going to be interesting to watch in the context of those older films. I mean, maybe it's worth recommending that if you go and see this film, maybe it's worth thinking about seeing some of the older ones too.
Yeah.
Perhaps in the privacy of your own home. All right. So on streaming in April, there's quite a few big titles coming back, but there's one that is actually a new series, which looks really interesting. It's called Dying for Sex, and it's one of those ones where, you know, you mentioned this before, if you would have looked at the tagline alone, I feel like I probably would have been like, oh, maybe I'll give that one a miss. But I watched the trailer, and it has this charming energy to it, which is really, really fascinating. And also, you know, it has such an incredible cast. It's headlined by Michelle Williams, who I think is one of the great actresses of her generation.
And Sissy Spacek, isn't it,
Yeah,
as well?
absolutely.
Is it Sissy Spacek? Yeah, and together they look so much like mother and daughter. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And Jenny Slater's in it, and also Rob Delaney, who's a really wonderful comedian, and a bunch of other really, really great performers. So it's one about a woman who has cancer and is kind of potentially facing the end of her life, and is ticking off a bucket list, and the top of the bucket list is that she's never had particularly great sex, and so that's what she's after. And it's it just looks like the way it's been handled is really, really charming and powerful. And
it's funny that you mentioned that comedian, because I think what they nailed is the tone. They've got this beautiful tone that switches between the comedic and the brilliant one-liners about the subject matter, and then being really moving and dramatic.
Yes.
And so you did need actors of that caliber who can do that, who've got the dexterity to play between the pathos and comedy.
And something I really respect about Michelle Williams is that she chooses her roles very carefully, and I feel like her name on the docket is something that will always sell me on checking it out because of the care and the ability that she brings to her roles. So it's definitely one to seek out, I think.
Absolutely.
Also coming up this month, we have Your Friends and Neighbours, which is on Apple TV Plus. That has John Hamm as a rich fella who loses all his money and decides the way to make money is to rob the houses of all his rich friends, which looks quite fun. We've got two really big series returning. The Last of Us has season 2 arriving. The first season was really critically acclaimed from the guy, Craig Mazin, who made Chernobyl. And so the second season, there's a lot of eyes on that. The one I'm really excited for is actually Andor season 2, which is the return of the kind of really the only kind of modern Star Wars property that has anything really going for it, in my opinion. And it's Tony Gilroy who created Michael Clayton behind the chair, and the second season looks to be very big and exciting and fulfilling.
Killer cast too, amazing.
An insane cast. It just looks so good. We've also got a new season of Black Mirror. We've got The Handmaid's Tale coming back. Both of those feel very much timely returns, considering the modern layout of everything.
They really are. One's about virtual reality and AI
in
the Black Mirror, and the other one's about the state of the United States right now in The Handmaid's Tale.
It's not science fiction at all, seemingly. And we've also got a couple of Netflix shows, Havoc and Pulse, that are coming out as well. So keep an eye out for those, but particularly look out for Dying for Sex, I think, which looks really, really special.
Yeah.
So in April, obviously, Rialto Channel is a sponsor of the Italian Film Festival, and to celebrate that, we are also having a bit of a Cinema Italiano program on the Rialto Channel, showing some really, really beautiful films. There it is, right there, showing some really beautiful films in April every Monday night. So one of these films is one of my favourite films of the last 10 years at least, a beautiful film by Aotearoa, La Chimera.
La Chimera, yes.
Beautiful. You know, you mentioned Fellini before, and I feel like La Chimera is very much in the Fellini strain. It's a beautiful, beautiful film that you had at your film festival last year. Is that right?
Last year, that's right. And La Chimera, it's got directed by Alice Rochwacher, and his sister Alba Rochwacher is in the film as well. They're like this powerhouse.
They are, yeah. Alba was in Maria earlier this year.
Yeah,
she's very good in that too.
Yeah, she's brilliant. Can I do a little name dropping? I worked with Alba Rochwacher when I was in Italy. I was doing I was in production on a film set in Cinecittà, and so my job was to go to the changing rooms of the actors and walk them to the set,
right.
Which, like 5 minutes of walks through all the studio lot, and she was one of the actresses on it. Wow. And so my job was also to read, she was about to do her scene, so she'd read the lines with me, and I'd read the lines going, oh my God, I'm reading with these amazing actors. But she was quite young then, because that was a long time ago, and now she's huge and massively important in Italy.
In
and
Italy,
probably because of that little 5 minute walk with me that really helped their acting. Yeah,
that really boosted. Yeah, that really opened up all the opportunities. Right. I am interested actually in terms of obviously, Alice Rohrwacher is such an important filmmaker in the kind of art world scene. Do you have much of a sense of her importance in Italy and in the way she's received in Italy?
Yeah, she's definitely not mainstream, I would say.
Yeah,
but I think this sort of art house scene in Europe is big enough too that she is a major player in European cinema.
Right.
So a lot of those filmmakers like Alice Rohrwacher, because they've got such a huge following in France and in Germany and in England, they end up having a massive career.
Yeah, right.
But in Italy alone, it wouldn't be quite enough. Do you know what I mean?
Right, I gotcha.
So she's like a festival favourite around the world.
Yeah, definitely. And this one, I honestly think maybe it's her best film. Josh O'Connor is in it, also from Challenges, and he plays an art thief. Oh, no, not an art thief, like an archaeological...
He's an archaeologist, and then it turns into a grave robber to make money.
Yeah, grave robber, that's right. And he has this kind of travelling band of merry folk who... very Fellini-esque in a lot of ways, but also very sad and very... powerful and mysterious and dreamlike as well. It's just absolutely
and it's got a feel of magic realism, but only in a very restrained way.
Very restrained, because that's not usually my scene, but in this it just really worked for me.
Yeah.
Now we've got a couple of other great films here. There's Still Tomorrow.
Still Tomorrow is a film that beat Barbie at the box office in Italy, and it was in the last 2 years the biggest film in Italy by a long shot.
Wow.
And it's about the emancipation of Italian women post-war.
Right, yeah.
And it's black and white. So I'm so proud of Italy, but it is one of the funniest films about important things that you'll ever see. Wonderful. It is so charming and light, and yet it's about domestic violence, and it's about women coming out of the oppression of patriarchy.
Wow.
And so it's kind of like, how neorealism essentially is can be quite serious at times.
Yes.
She takes the sort of style of that, but makes it whimsical and comedic, and makes it is so funny about really delicate subjects matter. So you've got her opposite Valerio Mastandrea, who's a really well-loved actor in Italy, but they turn him into a horrible, patriarchal, violent man.
A bit of a cad.
A huge cad.
Yeah, right.
But all the violence is done expressionistically, which is a really tricky thing to do. So you go, are you undermining violence towards women by turning it into a dance, or are you celebrating it? And what are you doing? And Paola Cortellesi, who's the writer, actor, and director, she gets it so spot on that it is... it'll have you crying and laughing and watching in the same moment. And it's been it's done nothing but huge critical acclaim around the world. So there's still tomorrow. It's one of those films that you could never plan. Producers and marketing people could never plan for the success of a film like this. It just happens to be brilliant.
It just happens to, yeah. We've also got The Eight Mountains and Tu Chiara, two, I don't know if they're under the radar Italian films. Maybe Tu Chiara is. The Eight Mountains I've heard a lot of talk about. But
It won the Grand Jury Prize at Cannes.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's one. For me, that was my favourite film of last year's collection, just because it's so moving and beautiful, and it feels like the music of it lasts in your veins for hours. When I saw the trailer the other day again for it, it just transported me right back to the film, and I was like, wow, that's such a beautiful film about friendship between two men.
Yeah.
So simple, but so essential.
Fantastic. And Tu Chiara is also one that has had a bit of a life in the art film circuit.
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity to catch it here. One that may have flown under the radar a little bit here in New Zealand.
Absolutely, because it's really, really gritty and very authentic, and so coming of age meets crime story.
Yeah, right.
You know, and it's like a Greek myth in terms of like you have to kill, a son has to kill his father, so to speak, or but it's a daughter discovering that her father is part of the criminal underworld,
right?
And so that coming of ageness of it, and it's done so delicately, and yet has all the tropes of edge of your seat tension of a crime drama at the same time.
Yeah, coming of age and crime both feel like very much things that Italian cinema deal with uniquely and in a way that's really powerful.
Yeah, and it's ironic for a society that never seems to grow up.
Fantastic. So the Italian Film Festival is happening this month. Where can we find information on it, Paolo?
Dude, you can go to ItalianFilmFestivalNZ.com, and in Auckland we're showing like in 8 cinemas, and we start on April 28th, and in Auckland we go all the way till late May, so there's quite a few opportunities. So we tried to take the festival to audiences in Auckland rather than they having to travel everywhere around.
Fantastic.
So it makes it quite boutique, and like cinemas like the Capitol will have a sort of a curation that suits their audience, and it kind of works really well like that. And then it goes around the country all the way till January next year.
Wow, fantastic. I mean, it's, as I said right at the top, it is one of my favourite festivals, probably my favourite festival in New Zealand, and it is always such a pleasure talking to you, Paolo. It's always just such a great ride, and please come back anytime. It's been a real pleasure. Grazie.
Grazie
Thank you so
to you,
much.
Tom. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks to the good folks at Madman, we have two double passes to give away to the Penguin Lessons. This is the film that we talked about earlier with Steve Coogan, set in Argentina in the 1980s. An English teacher ends up unwillingly adopting a penguin, and it leads to all sorts of hijinks and mishaps. It looks actually really beautiful and really special. So we're really happy to be able to give away 2 double passes for that. So go on over to viewmag.co.nz to enter. That's all from us today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time for more Point of View. Ka kite.